So I'd like to commence our discussion with a request for you to share your ideas, your opinions, your insights into the implementation of e-health. What is important in this e-health digital revolution? From your perspective, you're responsible for large institutions, major players on the health market. Mr. President, would you please commence? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this invitation. I must admit, it was a dilemma for me whether I should come here, because right now we are entering extraordinary mode of operation. We have a crisis team. We need to be able to react promptly to resolve certain local problems, as we can see an increasing number of outbreaks emerging. But I wanted to come here because it seems to me that the time has come, and contrary to what one might think, there have been several events, issues that can be very beneficial right now. E-health has provided two very specific solutions. One of them is directly about e-health, that is e-prescription and electronic medical leaves. We finished that implementation in December. As of January 1st, we have some new responsibilities, and right now e-prescriptions and e-leaves are standard solutions. On the other hand, we have seen a lot of discussions about what's going on with e-medicine, especially at the level of primary contact, primary medical services. We know that in private companies standards are higher, but at the end of December, November and the beginning of December, again, important changes occurred, legal changes. We implemented e-visits as an official element of public services basket. So e-visits with general practitioners. So on the one hand, we can issue e-doctor's leave. We can have an e-visit, e-prescriptions, but the beginning was rather sluggish, so we wondered how we could encourage this with a system of financial incentives. And suddenly we have this coronavirus situation. And indeed, one of the methods of preventing a widespread outbreak is increasing e-visits, or increasing the use of e-visits. Now, I know that it would take a very long time to convince the medical community that it is useful, but lo and behold, the doctors got together and they issued some guidance in that area. So if we are going to get visits, first of all, they should call the doctor on the phone. Then an e-visit should be offered to the patients as a basic form of contact. And already we have the guidelines issued by the chief medical inspector, and together with the national consultant for general practitioners, we should start with e-visit. We suddenly shift from a world where this e-visit was a mere possibility, but not really used, to a situation where it is going to be a primary form of contact with health services. It's obviously a pity that this has occurred under these grim circumstances, but it's a great opportunity. At this time, we can see great opportunities in terms of tools, regulations, but we need to do a very intensive work in clinics and general practitioners. Some of them are ready for that process of shifting to e-visits, but many of them need assistance. And this is the right time. The time has come to provide that assistance. What is assistance in this context, real context now? I've seen situations where facial masks have been offered 10 zloty per one as a form of assistance, but obviously it's no good. Now, how can we use this tool? Now, e-visits have a much broader spectrum of opportunities. First of all, identification. There are some platforms that enable you to show your ID card just in a face-to-face situation. Also, certain tests can be performed using electronic solutions. So we should assure the doctors that they have a substantial ability to interact with the patient, that their options are not severely limited, that e-visits do not limit their possibilities to a significant extent. So I'd like to issue an appeal. We are at a time of crisis. Since we already have certain instruments that we could use, we must accelerate education. Now we're going to prepare e-learning tools, other tools of assistance, but without commercial support from commercial companies. We will not be able to spread these tools sufficiently to combat the coronavirus. Of course, maybe next time I could talk about a systemic approach, but this is really special. Well, at a time of crisis, we can note certain important features of the system. It's a system of stakeholders, healthcare stakeholders. We are in it together in a capacity, different capacities, but we need to realize that every stakeholder should contribute something, and crisis reveals what the situation is and reveals whether they offer facial masks 10 zloty per item, or we can do something else, something more. Crisis reveals certain procedures that may be efficient. Arthur Białkowski. Now, what is your experience with e-health, in particular e-medicine, and how can we respond to this request of President Niedzielski? Let's help the National Health Fund to help them with this solution. Well, I absolutely agree that at this time, it's the right time to strengthen these e-medicine, e-health solutions. We've been using them for more than 10 years in our company. Now, indeed, the e-visit is not only a telephone based visit. It's also chat. It's also, for example, asking the doctor after a visit via a digital medium. For example, because a patient forgot about the indications. Now these solutions, official solutions, institutional and legal, have enabled a number of things. But for example, e-prescription was not possible without legal solution. So today it is possible. Similar situation holds for e-doctors leaves. Last year we issued about 500,000 e-leaves within an electronic system. But no, those leaves were not issued remotely. Now, I must say that I heard it's only for the time of coronavirus epidemic, and I would like to ask why. I can give many examples. Let's say 95% of our patients says, I'm very happy about e-visits, I'm very happy about the solutions I was offered. But some say that had to go to the doctor at a later date because they were not given doctor's leave or a leave for their children, a leave of absence from school. It would be much easier for us to operate if we were able to issue remote leaves. And last year we gave 3 million e-visits, and our patients know this opportunity. They are willing to take it. And indeed, this authorization is important. We enable authorization via banks, so a person does not have to come physically. They can authorize by taking a password for a platform from their bank and using our e-medical services. So we are ready.
And solutions supported, but let's not exclude them. They should be more disseminated and more proliferate. The system will benefit that. We've got 1 million of patients, so a vast majority of patients do not use, a large number of patients do not use the public system, but use our system. But the knowledge associated with telemedicine is transferred on. They say to their friends. So what you're appealing about, to support one another in this kind of solution, has already been done for a number of years with us. Mr. President, quick response to what you were saying. First and foremost, we have the ministry's interpretation, the Ministry of Family and Social Security Fund. Not specialized, but general regulations. They make it possible to issue the sick leave, but this is the doctor responsible for that. What is going to change, this will be the Ministers of Labor regulation, not interim one, but a permanent one. It's not for a moment, but for keeps. In order to prove the point, just before our presentation, I was talking to a GP from Lublin who had this kind of interpretation. He's one of the pioneers in implementation of sick leave and e-prescription. As far as I remember, until 12, he had this patients in a regular way. Now he's got 38 patients a day, 8 in standard type, others in this e-model, so you can switch very swiftly. You mentioned about doctors. The situation we have now, we have doctors who have the suspicion that patients might have suffered. So they should be put on quarantine so the doctors can keep working in a distant mode through telemedical ones, because they won't be able to provide their services directly meeting their patients, but they can do it through telemedical ways. two indications. I'm optimistic. This is user-centric or patient-centric world, so you cannot return to what used to be in the past before the crisis. I'm quite optimistic. Your cooperation with KIR. This is a very important context. We don't use context in medical services very often. Health services require presentation of a context. We don't use it often. This authorization, this is the way the context is used. It would be easier for a national health fund. We include context into our day-to-day practice. Thank you very much for what you said. We'll be returning to this. Let's proceed. We've got a representative of the pharmaceutical sector. This one plays a very important role in healthcare services. So would you please have your say on pharma use of the new possibilities of digital health in care and management process, on the quality of the services you render, and observance of indications and guidelines? There's lots of very important questions. Yes, I'd agree with what you were speaking about before. It's nice to have connected the two components, the E and complementary visit for the patient. This is to benefit of everybody. If we had developed this kind of business architecture of our system and placed all specific components in the architecture, thinking how to make them cooperate, we might create a number of combinations that are already there. It would be to patients' benefit. Speaking about pharmaceutical business sector, this interest in health is great, has been great for a number of years. The 10 biggest pharma companies have invested over 4.2 billion Polish zlotys or dollars into digital therapies. And these are the main interest of pharmaceutical companies, yet these digital therapies may operate different ways. So as it has been indicated here, it can be support for medical therapies, drug therapies. These can be independent based on interactions with digital technologies. And one of the challenges in this area that pharma companies have been facing, though US FDA's attitude has made it a bit easier, I believe. This is the question to enter these therapies into the market. I'm speaking about regulatory area to show the results of the therapy, business models, commercial models, refund model, all these kinds of elements require cooperation of different stakeholders. This kind of business architecture in place would make it possible to open up a transparent discussion on this and more efficient addressing the patients and delivering them the positive results, which is a very good indicator. There is an element that needs adding on, the element that is much spoken about, but it still has not been given the momentum. The utilization of all kinds of technological developments and imagining the situation that we are speaking about contact with a doctor, where the doctor may discuss it with the doctor. This is a kind of interview with the patient based on the doctor's experience, but compared to the physical one, there is a number of diagnostic elements missing. You cannot do it over the phone. Even in Poland, we've got a number of vibrant companies that are developing very swiftly, that develop smart solutions like an intelligent stethoscope or diagnostic element. So if put together into one unit, it would make it possible to switch from this experience-based counseling to practical and concrete information. The crisis situation that we are facing at the moment might have a substantial impact on limiting possible posing to the threat of something being wrong in the health system, so that they are not in contact with those that have been infected yet not informed. So this discussion includes a number of technological aspects expanded for the patient. Thank you very much for this voice of yours. I look at the business architecture that you were mentioning in the context of the objectives, benefits. That would be of interest to Mr. President. Efficiency-focused system, business architecture that is on a lookout for efficiency. And this lookout for efficiency produces the new ways to meet the old demands or requests. As a matter of fact, we meet the demand for the needs, but we supply the demand in a new way. So new diagnostic methods. If I can add up one thing, this must be patient-centric. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Like e-health forum, Mr. President was speaking at the forum. National Health Fund processes the greatest number of information with regards to the health protection. That there is an astounding amount of the data. With the architecture in place, we could think how to do it in a safe and ethical way in order to utilize the data so that the benefits for the patient are generated faster and in a more efficient way, as it has been said. Yes, indeed. This efficiency element is also important. The primary benefit is for the patient, but all the stakeholders would benefit from that. We'll ask Mr. President about the efficiency of the new solutions and the new assets in the sector. We don't think about it, but these are billions underground. Speaking about the data and artificial intelligence, let me ask Mr. Gavrish about the experiences of international player, dozens of years of experience. Information processing and use cases for information. Getting ready for today's presentation, I prepared one thesis, but it might cause controversies, so let me give you a kind of introduction. Why? We've been a new player in the healthcare market or e-health market, and we have created medical appliances production unit, and this offer is a broad scope in its nature, more focused on Americas rather than Europe. But there is one application that we sell. We have been selling it for 3 years, and this application is a narrow scope, quite precise one. It focuses on oncology, but it generates a great and avid interest because this is the first application of this kind that was put onto the market, and it has been used by clinicists. It is based on AI technologies. 3 years ago, we started selling this application, and we thought that this would be the one that would rule the world, and it would be the life-saving application that would generate a lot of money for us too. It's been 3 years since, with amassed experience over the 3-year period, and our attempts to implement the application in all corners of the world. Our employees have been largely involved. There's been a great interest of the general public because everybody's practically heard about this application. What was very important, the experiences, was the last year when the company decided that in addition to the fact that we try to sell the application to health providers like oncological hospitals in all corners of the world, and it has been quite successful, we'll try to discuss it with the governments that control health provision systems. And we started talking to 5 countries last year in all corners of the world, including 2 European countries, and Poland, one of the 2 European countries, which may come as a surprise for you. And the perspective of the discussions and the perspective of the 3 years, what needs telling is the fact that what you've heard in conferences of this kind, like the one we are taking part in today, that the health is the area for AI revolution and digital transformation, will see fast development. It is kind of untrue. This is not true. This is suggested by the people who see the great need for it to happen. They see the demand for innovations in e-health. However, they neglect to see that this business sector has got its own specificity that makes it resistant to innovations in a particular way. So these are the barriers that we had stumbled into. Objective barriers, I'd say. It's not that people were open and willing to cooperate, to engage with us, including Polish government. But the open discussions demonstrated specific objective barriers. These are related to human health specificity, and these barriers could be discussed ad nauseam. Give us 3 barriers. The first barrier: medical knowledge is a specific type of knowledge. It has been developing in a specific way. Each medical assumption before it becomes a part of reality requires a lengthy multi-annual tests in a clinical environment. Automated algorithms, as people think, may result in the fact that machines will suggest other treatment ways. You can't do it. If it is suggested by an automated system, it requires research in order to make it go live. No innovative way of treatment will be suggested. It doesn't work this way, briefly speaking. Second thing of all, health protection system is pretty complex. Therefore, by its nature, systems are resistant to innovations. difficult and complex processes. And another barrier, people are not willing to speak about this, but the health protection systems have been created and have evolved as the result of a debate, of a political process. The strongest party are doctors, who are at the same time stakeholders in the system. Doctors have a greater influence on the system evolution rather than the patients. It's been the case in all corners of the world, including Poland. So these are the politicians to blame. Politicians are not that willing to tackle the problem because they gain political gains in other fields. But doctors support e-health services. But in the back of their head, they've got their own interest. The crisis time, the breakthrough time, but there is the chance associated with today. You cannot do it the old way. You need to do it the new way. It's not about the revolution taking place or not taking place, but it will advance faster in other ways. Slower in health provision services, owing to the character of the services themselves and human life. In other areas, you can implement experiments in an easier way rather than the areas associated with human life. E-commerce, e-banking. And I wouldn't like to stick to the international level, so one brief comment on Poland. In Poland, the area is pretty supportive and conducive to innovations. We've got young society, entrepreneurial, lots of well-educated people, ICT included, quite big resources. We are in the European Union that earmarks good money for innovations. Resources are available. Therefore, in Poland, lots of startups are being created and they go into medicine-related areas. However, on the other hand, our health services system is resistant to innovations owing to its homogeneity. There is the predominant pay one type of health insurance because private ones cannot win over. Therefore, there's a great social demand for equal access to medical services for each and every one of us. This is the benefit of the system. But still, there is a side effect. This is pretty homogeneous a system, and innovations cannot find a field bed to be tested. Because if you want to test innovations on the health protection system, the only place to test it is the old Polish health system, but it's too big a field to run experiments. So briefly speaking, I'd dare say that it may happen that some revolutionary innovation in health provision services might originate in Poland. It may happen so. We've got ABM that invested lots of money into medical knowledge development, but still there is a little chance that the innovations will reach Polish patients. The decision makers should organize lots of pilot programs, something that has already started, but the scale must be different. They should experiment. They should remember that the place for innovation testing should be created. And the knowledge of as a test result is disseminated. And there's one more barrier in Poland. Pharma sector is strong enough to have worked out specific paths and mechanisms how to introduced innovations into the reimbursement system, ICT system-related things, and e-health. Still, it is in the teething age. This is what the government should be working on in order to work out specific mechanisms, paths, access roads for innovations to reach general reimbursement system. ATM statistics enough. How many pharmaceuticals and how many other innovations? Thank you very much for this bucket of cold water. Mr. President would like to comment. The floor is yours. Much has been said about public system.
Bardzo ciekawa wypowiedź.
Very interesting statement, even though I do not agree with it, though I do not want to engage in propaganda of success. I know the extent to which this world is dominated by doctors, but I think that certain relations are shifting historically speaking. When we look at what was possible 10 years ago, I think that this sector is now much more open to innovation, to changes in thinking, not only because there is a trend around the world, but because the system is insufficient to care for all patients, given the increasing demand. Without a technological change, we will not be able to serve all patients, or we will not be able to provide the full range of services expected by society. For sure, I must agree that we will not see a revolution. This could also happen at a time of crisis like today. Perhaps this could provide a window of opportunity for a quantum change, quantum leap change, because, as you said, the patient security requires a different approach. Also, the doctor's mindset is not the most open to innovations, but I would like to note that the product that you are talking about is not like, oh, we prepared something great and you have to use it. The product should be also adjusted to the expectations of clients, like the medical community, doctors, and I wouldn't blame all external factors and concerns, but perhaps we did not put in the picture all these factors that have been mentioned before. Now it's over to Dominic again. From the point of view of the media, how you can overcome barriers, how you can advocate for acceptance of the change, which is difficult, as it has been said, due to the specific considerations related to healthcare. What would your suggestions be? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for this invitation very much. I'm very happy that there is a member of the media here, because except for the last utterance, I became somewhat optimistic that we are ready and we are just on the cusp of transformation. I've never had an opportunity to use e-medicine, even though it's possible that under the circumstances this will be the case. This crisis that we're facing may indeed affect the mindset of all participants in the market and could accelerate some processes, but In addition to technological barriers or challenges, a major challenge that we will face once everything is ready may be the case that we have a problem with encouraging patients to use these solutions. And I'm not talking about the people who are present here in this room who use the internet, computers on a daily basis, but I'm talking about the average Pole. For such people, the internet may not be the daily use. I would like to refer to internet payments. It took a long time for internet users to pay on the internet. This trust in the internet developed for a long time. It may be a similar situation in this case. So the role of the media is to educate together with the other members of the market, other companies with this healthcare system. I'd like to note that in Poland, Pole TV enjoys great confidence. It's a specific issue of Central Europe. Historically, TV has always been the leading medium. Now, I just quickly checked some studies before the panel. According to CBOS polling institution, 75% of Polish people treat TV as the primary source of information. The internet comes second, but that's only half, 27. This tendency is going to revert by the end of the day. The internet is going to advance in that rating, but TV is a very important medium. We spend on average 4 hours a day in front of a TV set, on average. Probably it doesn't concern you. You probably do not represent the country's average. 4 hours a day, it's a lot of time. So the strength of a medium should be used to educate, to create social trust in innovative products such as e-health, e-medicine. And for that reason, we established our program TV. We deal only with health 24/7. And we want to do that in a way that is appropriate for our medium. If you want to educate and encourage patients to use those services as soon as possible, you will have to adjust the way, let's say, those clients consume the media. So TV is primarily an entertainment medium in addition to being an information medium. So if you want to accelerate that process and propagate that area, we would have to present it in an entertaining way. So the average person should understand how that works. They should understand that it is very simple and effective. We know, all of us know how much it takes, how much time it takes to see a doctor. This is a reality. Obviously, it's no finger pointing, Mr. President of the Health Fund, but if it were possible to get a diagnosis from the doctor within one day and to get at least a rough idea about what's ailing me, well, I think that a TV series or a live show could be deployed to show that. And for example, such a video chats, e-visits could be presented on TV, and that would make people more open to the idea. I have a question. In the context of e-health, you recalled the theme of illnesses. Now, can health be an element of culture, entertainment, lifestyle centered on health rather than illnesses? What would you say the opportunity is to put an emphasis on health rather than illnesses? Well, it's already ongoing on several levels. For example, in the most popular TV series, the most popular TV series are about hospitals. They are the main source of information about a variety of illnesses for Polish people and about therapy. So a lot of celebrities have become ambassadors promoting certain therapies or draw attention to certain issues, and we, as a TV, we are a carrier of such information. So in addition to serious subjects, serious programs, we want to include a lot of programs about prevention therapy, health, let's say, programs that treat the matter in a light manner, that talk about it in an entertaining way while educating the viewer. So I think we all should adopt such an approach. On the one hand, an excellent infrastructure, and on the other hand, how we can get the message across in a simple and effective way to the patients. Now, just speaking to what was said, obviously TV is a great medium for promoting health, but health begins before illness, before medicine. Health begins with a certain lifestyle, about our diet, physical activity. In Medicover, we indeed emphasize prevention, prophylaxis. We encourage sports. We encourage right diet, because that indeed is critical to our health, and that further on translates into illnesses and treatment. But first of all, we should change our lifestyles, and only then talk about treatment. So in the last few minutes of our panel, I'd like to speak about new opportunities. Now, Michał Gawrysz said that it's difficult to transform the old, but digital transformation is about adding new dimensions to existing realities. Now, mobile telecommunication is not a fixed landline with a longer cable, even though we usually call from enclosed spaces. But of course, mobile telephony is not equivalent with fixed telephony, only more widespread. It's something else. So a question about resources. Perhaps we have some resources that are not used. I would like to return to the issue of data and prevention, keeping fit and healthy. Perhaps we can tap some existing resources for healthcare. Now, Mr. Director here is, let's say, has at his disposal one of the greatest data sets in the world, a uniform data set about people. So what value can be added to what we already have to produce benefits for the patient, a more effective healthcare system? Also, what you said about prevention, it's an obvious benefit for you. It's a better health of your patients, less money spent on treatment. So, Professor Adam Joski, now what is your perspective on data? How about this idea about new resources? Do you think it would be possible in the near future? I think it's already happening. Now I can tell you about the practical issue of using data in the National Health Fund, we started with audits. We started with auditing our health providers to make sure that the data, the report are correct. We started with the simplest rules, so we had benchmarks. We compared, okay, how many patients can be served by a health provider, what types of patients, whether, for example, one GP works in one area of Poland, not in several. So it was about data comparison rather than advanced algorithms. Obviously, as an institution, we underwent a certain education. Those methods were improved over time. Approximately 2 years ago, more than that, perhaps we decided we would create a dedicated analytical team composed of econometrics rather than doctors and other people specialized in quantitative analysis. So that set of new vehicles, so to speak. So we have a multi-criteria analysis in comparing health providers. So it was not only about picking up outliers. Now, following multi-criteria analysis, we got involved into even more advanced algorithms, very close to artificial intelligence. And now we're starting to use self-calibrating algorithms. And so we have automatically generated reports about the risk of infarctions, which we verify by auditing health care providers. So this has been developing very dynamically for the past 2 years. So this just came out during work, but the analysts noted that those data have a potential not only to detect fraudsters, but obviously the data have a great potential for supporting doctors. So contrary to what the representative of IBM said, we carried out a comprehensive analysis of stroke risk. Now, this is what we showed in our reports. Now you can read our webpage, Healthy Data. We prepared advanced reports, but it was of very little interest to the doctors, so we changed our approach. We asked doctors, invited them for consultation. We asked them what kind of support they would need. They said, okay, the data are dispersed within the system. We don't have access to them. Some of them are available to the patients privately. Some are in specialized care, some in hospital care. So the only place where the data could be aggregated is the National Health Fund. So the doctors are saying that they do not have access to data and they cannot process the data. So a doctor is going to use algorithms to detect a pattern in data to check whether it adds up to a typical pattern of a disease. So we delved into this issue and we started to create patient pathways in the system. We have billions of data in terms of profiling. Google can profile anybody in terms of what websites we use, and indirectly Google interprets our preferences, and we can also see what doctors you visit, how often, what medications are reimbursed. Is we do not have medical history in the system, but we have individual medical events, and we can put it together. So exactly 1 month ago, we moved on to the implementation phase with a project where we test the risk of stroke for every citizen. So we are looking for certain patterns And then we looked for a good fit to determine the likelihood of stroke. So the project now in the implementation phase, so we consulted the algorithms with doctors. But by the end of the day, we sent ordinary letters by traditional mail to GPs informing them that your patients are at a risk of stroke, and would you please tell us to what extent you realize that problem, or perhaps they should, for instance, get more history or get more information, administer more tests to the patient. We involved the National Consultant for Neurology, and together we signed a very traditional letter to the doctors, telling them about it. So this story shows that you need to have a certain ability to combine tradition with modernity. If you flood people with gigabytes of data without targeting the various clients, well, we will meet with refusal, rejection. But if we combine tradition with modern solutions, that's the key to success. I'm very happy to hear that you already started that project 1 month ago in terms of predicting strokes, because it's obviously a very grave disease. Now, Mr. Tomasz, I would like you to tell us something about the architecture of the healthcare infrastructure. What is your perspective on managing healthcare risk?
I believe that we touched upon the element that brings together traditional problem with new possibilities. Because we all do realize that health protection system have struggled with discontinuity in chronic disease treatment. This is a problem that costs specific money, has been calculated in different models. But if we look and see that we've got e-prescription that plays its role in the market, and I believe it becomes omnipresent tool. From a point of view of a pharmaceutical company, we know that therapy based on our medications is efficient if a patient takes the drugs, especially hypertension or high cholesterol. If they discontinue using medications, the therapy will not be effective. So we can bring forces together, because all of a sudden we've got the access to the data, and the data is easier to use. Patients, if the patients discontinue, we can reach the patients. We can give them the signal, consult a doctor, and use this possibility. And the other very important element, if we have access to the data that is associated with the medical incidents, as you called the thing, pharmaceutical companies reach out for something that is called real-world evidence. The data that supports this kind of combination with algorithms. And these algorithms translate into therapy efficiency and better therapy. Huge new possibilities available here. New in the sense that we have known about it for many years, but we haven't had this kind of rapid access to the data and possible transfer to the information as we have it today. And in the context of my favorite topic, the architecture of health protection systems, once the architecture is in place, while the data is in place, we can offer benefits to the patients, but not only to the health system, because the therapies will be effective and additional costs that are associated with the fact that we do not that we forget to rely on doctors. The time's up. One sentence to finish off. I was quoting controversies, so one more digression. What Mr. President was speaking about is very important. This is population health management, as they call it. This is health protection system. So this is the National Health Fund's main objective, because it addresses the high-risk groups. But in practice, it indicated us doing new things. So we need doctors, despite the fact that we use technology provided by ICT. Doctors are still needed in order to interpret the medical screening results. So we need a new type of doctor. In addition to them being a doctor, they also know statistics, epidemiology, and they comprehend the algorithms. That's the way in all areas. Subconsciously, we hope that cutting-edge technologies will result in the fact that there will be fewer doctors in need, and they'll be free of automated activities of day-to-day humdrum. But in practice, it increases the demand for medical knowledge. It's just like everything. Let's not say publicly that doctors are no longer in need, because doctors are afraid of that. And second of all, this is not true. This is not true. So let's discontinue. Dominic, half a word. Let me appeal to my colleagues. We have created something outstanding. Invite us, because we don't know anything about your technology and processes, but we are expert on communication. So invite us to design some other processes, educational processes, and social recognition processes, because this is the domain we feel comfortable with, but we need to be included, we need to be invited to the process. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank panelists for being part of the discussion. Thank you very much.